The 1.5th anniversary is underway, and that means another selector ticket is right around the corner. Free-to-play players rejoice. There's no paid selectors this time around. You'll be able to earn this one through the in-game missions itself, so very nice for you. But what exactly is the SSR Selector ticket? Well, it's an in-game item that can be traded for any card that was featured on a banner up to Summer, 𝐌𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐤𝐞, and Nakayama first. This does make the SSR Selector less powerful than a limit break crystal, which can be used on any card, so make sure that you use your selector first. Since the selector is only for banner cards, this does mean that cards distributed from events won't be included. Thankfully, this isn't really a big deal because they're not that good. General advice. Generally, the selector is more useful for increasing a card's limit break, rather than getting a new card outright, though there are some cases where it's okay. But generally, you're going to be wanting to use it to take a card to a higher limit break where most of them get most of their power. As a last little bit of advice, please don't spend your ticket if you're planning to pull for support cards in the near future. You could get lucky and have something that will change your decision on what you want to spend your ticket on. I'm speaking from experience. I had this happen to me where I held off, had something that I wanted to pull, and that was able to change how I used my selector and basically put me in a much better position otherwise. So just make sure you hold off. The idea of this video is basically to give you all the information that you need to make the decision yourself so that you have all the relevant information and you can judge these cards and how valuable this resource is for you. And in order to evaluate cards, I've made a short list of criteria that we can use to judge the relative worth of cards. Longevity, we want to be able to use a card for as long as possible to get the most out of our resources. There's no point using the selector on a card if you aren't going to use it for a while. We do not get these selectors very often, so keep that in mind. Using GrandLIve, now this one is going to be a bit harder for people as GrandLive's not out yet, so I'll tell you quickly what card stats are important compared to Track Blazer. GrandLIve is not a race-heavy scenario. This means that risk bonus is going massively down in value compared to the meta stat in Track Blazer. What we want to aim for instead is cards with high rainbow rates. This means cards with high specialty priority and high initial friendship. We need to maximize the amount of rainbows we're getting in GrandLIve because it gives us more of the scenario resource which we need in order to buy songs, which is the scenario gimmick. And the other criteria we will be judging it on is how generic it is. This basically means it can be used on multiple UMAs and multiple distances. This is so specialized cards I will penalize a little bit. This isn't to say that these cards are bad, but generally we want cards that we can use in basically every situation. If we can bring a card 90% of the time is better than a card that we could bring 20% of the 20% of the time, even if that card is better in that situation. Okay, so let's get into the cards. I will be giving recommendations as well as some honorable mentions, which, whilst lower and valuable, I still think are worth mentioning, though that sometimes is just to say why they might not necessarily actually be worth it. So don't just look at the list and think, oh, I'm recommending every card, because that isn't necessarily the case. But it is everything that I feel like is worth talking about and everything you need to know. So let's get into it. Okay, so for the speed card, there are two main standouts. The first one's going to be fairly obvious for most people. Kita Black, queen of global speed cards since her release. She's been meta. She's been well suited to GrandLIve as well, with her ridiculous specialty priority starting from Limit Break 3. Her power bonus is very nice as it helps you get a balanced stat total as you train, and her gold skill is utterly generic and outside of the Iblis Summer Dash, which is a straight. Is usable on every track. If she does have a downside, it's that her rainbow trainings aren't the strongest, but with the amount of them you're expected to get, this isn't really an issue. On a final note, this card doesn't have any more banners, so outside of lucky pools, the only realistic way to get more copies of this is through selectors and crystals. So if you don't have any copies of this already and you don't have those resources, probably not going to be what you are wanting. The second speed card we'll be talking about is Summer 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐿. Brand new to Global, this card is honestly ridiculous, able to generate an absolutely massive amount of rainbow trainings. I've had a video going into more detail on the card, but the main thing you need to know is that she gets 5% training facility levels that she trains on. Well, most of the people focus on the 25% she gets a level 5 training. This is very good, but even at level 3, she's still getting 15%, which is very strong. If you're a front runner main, this card is incredible for you, though it's pretty decent if you play Pace Chaser as well, as she has some good generic hints. She also has rerun banners in the future, which is a nice benefit compared to Kita-san. She also has some rerun banners in the future, so yeah. And let us get into special mentions. There's quite a few for speed cards. Matakan Fukukitaru. This card isn't really a speed card. 0%, 0 specialty priority is not good in GrandLIve. Now, this card is really for people who want to do one thing, and that's to max out your rating. She's still really good for that purpose, but there's no real meta skills to be found. Again, rating maxing card. 0% specialty priority, which is bad in GrandLIve, not really recommended. Let's talk about Taiki Shuttle. This is an absolutely incredible speed card for Miles, but as we said, we are kind of penalizing cards which are not generic, and that's this card's issue. It is very incredible for Miles, but only for Miles. I would want to try and borrow her if you want her gold skill Mile Maven, but for any distance that isn't, so sprints, medium, longs, you have better options. Bakushin is a good stat stick, but suffers from the same issue as Taiki Shadow in that she's only really specialized in one distance. Now, her gold skill Turbo Sprint did get buffed to be a good excel on sprints, but the same advice as Taiki, this card is better as a borrow. And then Biko, same issue as Bakushin, also needs high limit break to get the most out of it, though it's still stronger than most SR cards with a 20% training effectiveness. She is hard to rainbow with her low friendship and not gaining any through her event chain. Silent Suzuka, this is the only source of unrestrained on a card, which is the gold excel for fronts. Issue being unrestrained isn't really reliable, unlike the golds for late surges and for page chasers. Thank you, Psy Games, by the way, for that. No training effectiveness means weak cross trainings, though she does have +1 speed point bonus and will be getting Scenario Link, which helps. Still, I don't think this card will see much use, and another card which won't see much use is Narita Top Road. This card's going to fall off hard. We're already seeing this in the Unity Cup. Her special needs you to race in order to boost her training effectiveness, and racing is not something we want to do in GrandLIve, so we would rather not gimp our run to get the most out of her card. Her gold skill is still quite good at least, but yeah, not really recommended Narita Top Road. Another card that's not really recommended is Mayano. She does have high specialty priority. Her gold skill is a heal, which is okay. It's for fronts only. So maybe we'll see some use on longs, mediums for front, though this card has issues in terms of value. It does give head-on for pace chasers through its first event, though it's not guaranteed, and ideally you should just be using Daiwa Scarlet Power if you want to get head-on. Sweep Tosho, the SSR version, 0 initial friendship and a useless gold skill, but then has 45% friendship bonus, 1 skill point bonus, and 65 specialty priority. Once you do get this card online, it's very strong, but don't underestimate how annoying this card is to Rainbow. Kawakami Princess, do you like Team Trials? Well, this card is very good for Team Trials as she comes with a cheap gold skill that will activate on any track for any UMA. If not, I would not invest in this card. Gold City. Unique on this card on this list in that it's one of the few that you can actually run at 0 limit break. This card comes with the gold skill Keen Eye, which is a speed debuff for Miles. However, we can use the new summer gold chip ult to force this to proc on any track, making it a universal speed debuff. Running this card on an Uma who has Dominator, and suddenly you have an extremely potent debuffer, and there will be another card that I will mention later on in the stamina section that is very similar in its usage, but this one is better because Keen Eye debuff speed, and it's generally better to debuff speed. And let's actually get right into the stamina section, and this is the part of the video where I tell you Super Creek is worth it. Yep, Super Creek is still the best stamina card on Global, though in some ways she has underperformed, but she has still come through when we have needed her to. This is off the strength of her gold skill, Swinging Maestro being the only reliable gold heal in the game. Well, it was. See, the update buffed a bunch of skills, and notably that includes Breath of Fresh Air, which is now a reliable gold, even more so than Swinging Maestro, and this also comes on the free Toast and Jordan Speed SSR that a lot of people have access to, so Super Creek, not quite as necessary for her gold heal, but still pretty much the best stamina card. And then I will briefly mention Manhattan Cafe. As a static, she does have fairly good stamina output, but the reason why I wanted to mention this is her gold debuff heal. Now, very much like Keen Eye, this is a debuff that you can proc with Gold City ult, and you could combine this with Mystifying Murmur in order to massively drain the strategy. However, I don't think this is better than just running Gold City using the selector on Gold City, because it's better to debuff speed. You can debuff speed on any distance compared to stamina, where it is only really for longs. And again, you could just debuff speed on longs, and that would probably be more effective and more consistent. Talking about power, there are a few cards that we have to talk about. However, they doesn't necessarily have too many cards we want to pull apart from the first one, and we briefly mentioned her already. Die with Scarlet Power. I think this card is currently the only one really worth using your selector on if you are a Pace Chaser main. Uh, that is to say, this is a stat stick and it's pretty strong. +1 stamina, +2 power, 80 friend gauge. You know, she's got some nice stuff going on. Her cross trainings on speed aren't bad as well. However, the real reason you're going to take this card is for her gold skill, Neck and Neck. This skill was recently buffed to make it much more reliable, and now Pace Chasers can use this in order to get a 0.4 on pretty much every track. That's really potent, and we're already seeing it in the Leo Cup, is making Pace Chasers much stronger than they were before. We talked about Die with Scarlet. Let's talk about Vodka. She is a great stat stick with some nice hints if you are a late surger. However, this card hasn't seen too much use, but it has had a buff to its gold skill, Breath of Fresh Air, which we just talked about with Super Creek. Very reliable heal now. The issue is that this is a power card, so you'd be bringing stamina sparks to make up for the stamina that you wouldn't be getting, because you would probably be wanting to use this on long, right? And then if you're using this on long, at that point, Super Creek does kind of just feel better because she's easily able to generate you that stamina. Though, you know, maybe you use this on a medium every now and then. But if you're going to use a power card on a medium, the next card we're going to talk about, El Condor Pasa. This card's been an absolute standout with its gold skill Killer Tunes. It is fairly decent stat stick as well, and the events are fairly decent. Very well-rounded card, though, like Taiki Shuttle and Bakushin. This card is a specialist, so that kind of hurts it somewhat. A card that is fairly generic is 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐤𝐞, which is arguably the best skill monkey card that we have in the game right now, giving max level hints of a number of useful skills such as Tail Held High. Her event chain is very strong, though you do have to choose between getting playtimes over on her second event or going through and then getting her gold skill, and you do really want her gold skill. Since Light Hello will get everybody the gold version of PTO, this is less of an issue in GrandLIve. So Ayabe Power, giving Daring Strike as her gold skill. If you know, these are a decent option if you are an end closer. Something that some people will bring up is potentially King Halo, because you can get Umastan guaranteed for her. But at that point, I think if you just want one skill, you should really just be trying to build up Umastan in your legacies and get that instead and take a more valuable card. Rice Shower Power comes with Swinging Maestro and puts her in a similar situation to Vodka, where you're wanting Swinging Maestro, you probably just want to bring Creek and let her generate you stamina in order to help you survive better, compared to running Stamina Sparks and Power cards. Smart Falcon. Are you tired of Smart Groundwork hating you and never showing up? Well, thankfully, this card blessed us with giving us a guaranteed groundwork from its first event. However, it's a very similar situation now to King Halo. This used to be the number one card I would borrow if I just needed to make an ace, because I just need groundwork on my front runner. However, we have cards like some Marozensky now that can give us groundwork a little bit more reliably, and we can just try and get it from, you know, a lot of front runners now will just be coming out with groundwork, so this card really just falls off. Guts, yeah, please don't. I can give you honorable mentions, but I don't recommend any Guts cards. They're not going to be good in GrandLIve, so that just kind of disqualifies the entire card pool, sadly. Bakushin Guts is very similar to Smart Falcon in that you just get groundwork for free from this card from the first chain. The gold skill is also fairly good for sprints, but it competes against its own SR, the speed card that we talked about at the start of the video. So the gold skill maybe is very good as a speed skill, but you want turbo sprints instead, right? And then it's a speed card, so it fits a bit more nicely into a GrandLIve deck, so I don't necessarily think this is worth it. So we're just going to move on to Wit. Oh boy, okay, so there are many good options in this category. Wit is going to be a card type that we want to use in GrandLIve, so spending a ticket here is going to feel pretty safe. Fine Motion is still the best Wit generator in the game. She does have some nice skill hints with 2 green skills. Forerunner and right-handed are very nice, as well as any Nimble Navigator, which is great for non-front runners. Her gold skill, sadly, 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐤𝐞 sends all the time, and you just, most of the time, will get prepared to pass instead of speed start, which really sucks, but this is still the best Wit card, quote-unquote, though. Quite a few caveats on that, but when this card shines, she really shines. Talking about another card is Nice Nature. Now, for those who are paying attention, I said race bonus fell off, so why is this card here? Well, because of everything else. See, it is a great stat stick, and it is awesome at generating wit. It has the ability to give you good gold skill. It has the ability to give you a good skill ramp up through its event, which is very nice. Her events are also pretty good. They like give you mood up and they give you energy. They can also cure debuffs, which comes up every now and then. Definitely like having Nice Nature in the deck. If you are a late Surgery player as well, the gold skill is just unbelievably good now that it's been buffed. On your left is a 0.4 Excel with a massive range, very easy to activate for late surges now. So if you're a late surger main, you probably already have this card, but if you don't, try and pick it up. For end closers, Mr. CB, we've talked about Pace, we've talked about Wit. Time to talk about the end closer Wit card. Mr. CB is currently the second best Wit card in the game, generating Wit only after Fine Motion, but she also has speed bonus, so that kind of like gives her a little bit of an advantage over Fine Motion. Very nice for balancing stats. Great hints for ends, though she does have some generic ones like Tail Held High, which is really, really nice. Her gold skill, Daring Strike, is absolutely incredible. You can only really otherwise get this from 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐿 Power, and I think it's much better to get it from Mr. CB, because we want to be running Wit cards anyway. Certainly, this is going to be the #1 card that enclosers are going to want to have. And those are really the 3 main ones. We will have some honorable mentions, though I think the honorable mentions here still pretty high value, probably higher value than any other category. I feel like you can be pretty comfortable maybe getting like a slightly off meta Wit card. 𝐻𝐸𝐬𝐿, 5 race bonus, held this card back a lot in Track Blazer, but it has absolutely come back in the Unity Cup. She has a very high specialty priority at 65, which is amazing for a Wit card. More specialty priority on Wit cards equals more energy, in addition to the normal benefits of letting you know get to Rainbow faster and whatnot. It does give you PTO from her first event, which finishes her entire chain, meaning you can just munch her chain to get your other card events to finish a bit easier, which is nice, though you are giving up a gold skill doing so. And she is a sprint specialist, so that is basically the biggest reason why she's an honorable mention and not just like more of a solid recommendation. Nakayama Festa, this card is very good. Her special ability gives you a chance to get 0% failure rate on a facility, and this comes up quite often actually when you are doing runs. It's very useful. It's not 100% reliable, but it happens enough to where you notice it. And then other than that, she's just built with good hints. She does have some 𝐻𝐸𝐬𝐿 in her hint. She has Summer Runner, which is really nice, and then her gold skill, Nothing Ventured, is very good, though it can 𝐻𝐸𝐬𝐿 send and give you the white version, which really sucks, but you're going to be wanting to use this definitely on parent runs to build that skill into legacies. Biggest issue, though, is this card doesn't have specialty priority, so it's not like a core Wit card. It's just, you'd still want a good strong basis of Wit cards, and then you'd want to include this card in the deck as like a flexi spot. Sirius Symboli, very similar to 𝐻𝐸𝐬𝐿 in that this card here is off with its ability to be a good stat stick. Her trainings are slightly better than Currents, though you'll get slightly less of them because she has slightly less specialty priority, but still a decent card. And then final Wit card we'll talk about, and it is a bit of a special one, is 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐤𝐞. She's not good at generating Wit as a stat stick. You know, you can definitely do better, but she's very similar to basically die with Scarlet Power and Nice Nature, in that you're just bringing like this card has a very good gold skill. It has no stopping, which is 0.4 Excel for basically any backline position. Now it's not always consistent, but honestly, this skill is just still very strong. You know, it can Gamba and you can proc this at a good time, and it's very, very strong. And you basically won't have access to this in the future, so if you're wanting to maybe like build an Oshi, having no stopping me access can be very, very useful, especially if you can stack a few gold excels together, and that can maybe be the difference between being able to bring your Uma that you like to Champions meeting. However, I'm not really the biggest fan of this card, but I still thought it was worth mentioning. Moving through the pals, there's no recommendations. Same as last time, I did a selector video. Taznet and Rico are the only options, and they are both going to get completely pushed out of decks once 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐤𝐞 comes out. Don't use your selector on a pal card. And for a group, there's only one group card that you can actually use your selector on. That's Throne. Throne is a good card, but you don't have room for it in your GrandLIve deck because you need 5 turns of recreation at least, right, to activate Throne. And you just don't have 5 turns of training. You need to be buying songs, and to do that, you need to be training as much as possible. You need to be getting those rainbows. You don't really have the affordance to fit Throne in a deck, and you just want to be maxing out your speed and wit. And the best way to do that is to bring speed and wit cards, right? And then you have 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐬 in the deck. That also takes recreation turns, so you just don't have room for Throne. Okay, so I thought it'd be helpful to explain my plan so you can sort of see how I would apply this logic to my own pools. Currently, I have a free limit break 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐻, which is the only card on this list that I have a high limit break that I feel is really relevant. But if I compare it to MLB, I don't really actually see much of a jump on 𝐌𝐤𝐬𝐻, so it's, you'd think it would be that good of an idea. But if I'm bringing her to 90% of my runs, then even that small benefit, I'm going to see that over time. It's really a game of edges, so that isn't terrible to do. But I am planning to pull it on Tachyon 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼, so I'd be holding my selector regardless until I'm done with all of my pulls from that. There's no point using my selector then because I don't know what I get. I've got a current wit at 1 limit break, right? If I pulled another one that goes to 2 limit break, that could then be selected up to 3, and then I've got 2 different wit cards I can choose between instead of just having one slightly better one at MLB, and that could be one way it could go down if I have my pools go that way. Another way I could do it is I have a free limit break Gold City, I could MLB that, and then I could put that card up for borrow. It wouldn't really benefit me too much though because I already have cards that I'd rather put up for borrow in that slot, but that's something you could consider. If you don't have anything like that, it's always nice to have a card that's up in your borrow slot generating you some points. But anyway, have your say. So, what are you currently planning on using the selector on? Do you have any questions or stuff that you want clarified? If you write that down below, I can try and help you out. If try and leave as much info as you can, because that helps me give advice if you are confused. If you found this helped you, maybe consider just any engagement with the video helps that information get out to as many people if you think it's useful. So that's very appreciated. I will see you in the next video.